If I told you a garden smaller than your driveway can feed 7 people year-round, no chemical fertilizers, no automatic irrigation, no water hoses, would you believe me or would you laugh? Don't dismiss it just yet. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to strip bare the 10 survival tricks medieval peasants used to turn every handful of dirt into food. And there's one trick that sounds as ridiculous as a joke, just a handful of ash that can save your entire garden after a rainy night, if you do it right. Want to skip it? Go ahead. But when the slugs march into your bean patch at 3 a.m., you'll wish you'd listened to the next sentence. Let's start with the heart of the entire system, the pottage garden, a garden revolving around a single, thick, hot, nutritious stew, hearty enough to fight off winter. In the morning, the cauldron hangs over cold ashes like an empty stomach waiting to be filled. Pottage wasn't a fixed recipe. It was a heartbeat, beating every day, but a different beat each time. Today, it's kale, leeks, and a few young turnips just thinned from the row. Tomorrow, it's peas, a bit of parsley, and a parsnip like a buried piece of energy. The key is harvest to regrow. Pick kale leaves from the outside, leaving the heart. Cut the tops of leeks, leave the roots, and they'll sprout again. Thin your turnips at week 3 to 4, and the remaining ones will swell up fast. You want numbers? 1 square meter of kale, tended correctly, can yield 400 to 800 grams per week at its peak. Sound boring? Not yet. In 30 seconds, you'll see that even the bench you sit on is a bed of herbs. The turf seat, what looks like a landscape toy, turns out to be a flavor station and mental recharge post. After hours of backbreaking work, peasants didn't have time to build fancy wooden benches. They'd build up a mound of earth, secure it with stones, and cover the top with grass and stomp-resistant herbs. You sit down to rest and harvest at the same time. Chamomile, thyme, creeping thyme, pennyroyal species that release their scent when brushed against, gently repelling insects and lifting the spirits. The secret is in the base soil. Mix coarse sand plus compost plus a few small pebbles for drainage, so it's not muddy or unstable. Place the turf seat right at the edge of your main workbed, where you bend over most, so you can pluck a pinch of seasoning for the pottage at any time. Thinking it's pretty but a waste of space? Wrong. The turf seat also acts as an embankment, reducing erosion at the edge of the path, a multi-tool component, just the way they liked it. But being multi-purpose doesn't mean it's nutritious enough. How does a tiny patch feed a family protein without a bag of NPK fertilizer? The answer lies right in the noduled roots of the legume family. European companion planting peas, fava beans, field beans with barley, oats, or wheat in the same plot, but not just mixed randomly. The principle is beans first or at the same time, grains a half beat behind with enough space that the canopies don't steal sun from each other. A suggested layout: a row of beans 30-40 centimeters from a row of grain. In the row, beans 10-15 centimeters apart, grains 8 to 10 centimeters. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil via symbiotic bacteria. They didn't know the bacteria's name, but they saw clearly that the soil was fatter after beans. Rotation. This year, beans grains. Next year, move root crops into that plot. So, if your garden is barren, don't dump chemicals. Plant a few rows of beans and give the soil time to recover. I know what you're asking. What if the heavy rain rots the bean roots? That's where the ash trick comes in, and this is the first plot twist. Wood ash and soot, 2 things you normally see as trash, are actually an incredibly effective soft barrier against slugs, snails, and some grubs. The method isn't to dump a bucket of ash at the base of the plant, nor is it to mix ash into the soil wantonly. You sprinkle a very thin ring, just 1 to 2 millimeters around the bed or the base of young plants, in the late afternoon after a dry day. The ash is abrasive and dehydrates the soft bodies of slugs and snails, making them turn back. The smoky smell of soot disorients many insects. After every heavy rain, the barrier is washed away, and you reapply it. A direct warning: ash is alkaline. Applying it thick and fast will shock the soil, especially for acid-loving plants. Stay disciplined. Don't use it more than 2 to 3 times a month in the same spot. Think ash is no big deal? The next big rainstorm will answer for you, when your neighbor's garden is eaten to the stem and yours isn't. Nitrogen is volatile, but plants need it constantly. Where modern people buy synthetic fertilizer, medieval people raised mini nitrogen factories up high, pigeons. The dovecote, a freestanding or hanging pigeon house, had one main goal: easy manure collection, keeping the nest dry and the birds healthy. Pigeon manure is incredibly rich in nitrogen, far too hot to apply fresh. They would compost it or make a tea before watering. A suggested safe recipe: compost for 6 to 8 weeks in a container with a vented lid, then dilute 115 to 120 with water. When watering the roots, the soil must be damp first. Never water the leaves in the hot midday sun. Frequency: every 10 to 14 days for leafy greens. No pigeons? Other poultry will do, as long as you compost it long enough to cool the manure. But what if you can't keep poultry? There's still a free weapon growing everywhere. It just stings a little. We still haven't used the free weapon growing everywhere, the stinging nettle. They would cut nettles before they flowered, chop them, and steep them in a bucket of water for 10 to 14 days, stirring every 2 to 3 days. When the solution turns dark brown and a strong, rotten smell rises, congratulations, you have nettle tea. But you must dilute it 110 to 120 before watering the roots. And remember, don't water the leaves at noon, and don't overdo it on plants that are about to be harvested. Nettle is a natural nitrogen battery. You don't pay money, you just pay. In smell. Some will complain, but ask anyone who's seen their kale explode with leaves after a round of nettle tea, and they'll smile and bear the smell again. All these tricks are useless if you get the season wrong. Medieval farmers lived by an invisible calendar. Plant too early, and a late frost bites the seedlings dead. Plant too late, and the crops don't mature before the cold. A sample temperate pottage calendar. Prepare the soil as soon as it doesn't stick to your boots, when a handful of soil crumbles after being squeezed. Weeks 1 to 2. Sow peas, radishes, kale. Weeks 3 to 4. Transplant young leeks. Sow a row of oats in between. After the first spring rains, check for slug trails. Sprinkle a thin ash ring in the evening. Mid-season, nettle tea every 2 weeks. End of season, harvest the main root crops before the first hard frost. Live in the tropics? Respect your wet, dry seasons and swap the plants accordingly. Yard-long beans, amaranth, mustard greens, cucumbers. The difference is knowing which window is open and for how long. Missing that window means paying with a meal. But keeping the garden safe from pests is a battle that can't be lost. One aggressive goat can delete months of hard work in an afternoon. Wattle fences appeared for this reason. Processed wooden stakes driven in a line with fresh, flexible branches, willow, hazel, woven between them and packed tight. Advantages: local materials, flexible when fresh, rigid when dry, a good windbreak, and also a trellis for climbing beans. In parallel, living hedges, planting hawthorn, blackthorn, or hibiscus to form a green wall for the long term. Prune it technically to encourage dense growth, weaving branches down low. And a small cliffhanger. With just a few stakes higher than eye level, the wattle also becomes a rack for drying herbs, getting them dry fast after a rain reducing mold and saving ingredients for tomorrow's pottage. The fence has protected the crop. But a self-sustaining garden doesn't exist if you have to beg for seeds every year. Seed saving is the backbone. Choose the strongest plants, the ones with stable yields. The most pest-resistant, those are the parents of the next season. Wait for the seeds to be physiologically mature. Husk is dry. Color has fully changed. Then harvest. Clean them. Dry them in a shady, airy spot. Store them in a clay pot or airtight container. Before the new season, do a quick germination test. 10 seeds in a damp paper towel. If 7+ sprout after X days, the batch is good. Records? They used knots on a string. You can use a pencil on a paper label. The golden rule: never eat all your seeds in a famine year. That is the only thread connecting today's hunger to next year's hunger. This seems simple, but it's this disciplined simplicity that kept food flowing for generations. Don't forget the long arm of the garden, the surrounding forest. Forest garden integration was how they filled the nutritional gaps. Lightly prune wild trees to encourage more fruit. Harvest nuts and wild berries in season, then dry, ferment them for later. Gather wild leaves rich in micronutrients like young nettle leaves in early spring and add them to the pottage, reducing the pressure on your cultivated beds during a drought. A great trick: keep a natural calendar. Hang a bundle of dried fruit. Mark the season. Next year, go to the forest, a half step earlier. You'll always arrive at the right time. Now, let's return to the pottage, the system's unceasing heart. Imagine a typical day. 5 a.m., check the garden after a rainy night, handpick slugs from the path, sprinkle a thin ash ring around the new kale. 6 a.m., pick the outer kale leaves, pluck a few sprigs of thyme from the turf seat, thin the radishes, dash some diluted nettle tea on the pale-looking greens. 7 a.m., cauldron on the fire, water boils, veg in, pinch of salt, a few oats to thicken. Noon, check the wattle fence, tighten a loose weave, hang a bundle of freshly cut chamomile up high. Afternoon, lightly hoe, pull weeds, add water at the base of plants dried by the wind. Evening, serve the meal. You see, this isn't a relaxation garden. This is a micro food factory. And if any link in the chain breaks the calendar, the fence, the ash, the tea, the seeds, it hits the pot directly. Now it's time to diffuse a misunderstanding. No fertilizer doesn't mean no nutrients. It means on-site nutrient cycling. Ash from the hearth returns to the garden. Soot from the chimney becomes a soft barrier. Leaves and nettles go into the compost tea and back to the roots. Pigeon manure becomes a steady stream of nitrogen. No irrigation doesn't mean no water. It means smart water retention. Mulching the roots, slightly raised beds in heavy soil, planting close to the house for quick harvesting, and choosing drought-tolerant varieties. You've been waiting for the final plot twist? Here it is. That handful of ash can save a row of seedlings in one night if you apply it at the right moment. Not while it's raining, not in the hot midday sun, but in the evening after the rain. When the ground is damp, the slugs are coming out, but the ash hasn't yet clumped. A thin, even dry ring around the young stems. The next morning, you'll count fewer eaten leaves than your neighbor. You can say, "This all sounds great, but I'm busy." Correct. So don't try to swallow the elephant. Deploy it in modules. Week 1. Build 1 experimental meter of wattle fence. Spread ash after the first rain. Cook 1 sample pottage from what you have. Week 2. Make your first bucket of nettle tea. Label the date. Week 3. Try interplanting 1 row of beans with another crop. Week 4, a small 1 meter x 0.4 meters turf seat. After 1 month, you'll find you've undone 3 or 4 dependencies on the supermarket, painlessly. And this is the most important thing to take with you when you close this screen. These 10 tricks aren't separate, they are a system. Pottage demands continuous harvest. Continuous harvest demands proper interplanting. Interplanting needs a calendar. The calendar needs a fence. The fence provides a drying rack. Ash and soot protect the leaves. Nettle tea and pigeon manure pump in nitrogen. Good seeds lock in the next season. The forest fills the gaps. Before we finish, allow me to challenge you. In the next 24 hours, do just one of these and leave your letter choice in the comments. Cook 1 real pottage harvested from your garden, balcony. Spread 1 ash ring after the next rain and record the before-after slug results. Steep 1 2-liter batch of nettle tea, label the start date. Weave 1 meter of wattle fence from any branches you can find. Select and save your first batch of seeds, and do a mini germination test. The pinned poll in the description will decide the next detailed practical video. Your comment could pull this whole community into an explosive garden season. Don't leave empty-handed. Subscribe and hit the bell not to count numbers, but so you don't miss the next tip that could save your vegetables next week. Share this with a friend who complains my garden is too small to feed my family, because the answer isn't in the square footage, it's in the system you install. That garden, smaller than your driveway, can feed 7 people. It's not magic, it's discipline, a chain of right-time decisions, and 10 tricks linked in a circle. Will you start with a handful of ash or a bundle of nettles? Decide tonight's pottage is waiting.